Tonight, we are talking about the City of Johannesburg's Integrated Development Plan, or IDP. This is an annual participation and planning program that determines how and where the city will be spending its money and how it intends to raise the revenue to fund it. In years past, less than 6,000 people in the City of Joburg have actually commented. That's less than 1% of the paying residents of the City of Joburg. So the engagements in the IDP, the budget and tariffs of the city, in some cases, people just then end up being shocked that their bills have changed or that they saw projects happening in other wards and didn't really understand how that happens. That happens really through the IDP. So granted, the IDP is a very daunting document. It's really long. It's like 350 pages, and that doesn't include the budget or the rates or any of that. And there's a lot of reading those budgets and understanding really complex financial allocations. That's not usually a function of most residents. Community members can find it quite difficult. So tonight we hope to guide you through the process and give you some background on what the IDP is, what you can comment on in it, and why participating is really an important civic duty for residents. It's not the first year JoburgCAN has helped engage residents on the IDP, and we've seen a marked rise in interest and participation. So these sessions have really proved to drive public participation, and we hope that tonight's guests will help you with any last-minute burning questions before you submit your comments on the 18th of May, which is the deadline this year. To answer your questions this evening, hopefully she'll be back in a moment, but her colleague Pumza Jack is here. We're joined by an incredibly knowledgeable City of Joburg employee who is the group head of the CoJ's property branch. Her name is Sihle More. Sihle has dedicated over 23 years of service to the city, bringing extensive experience in property management, billing, and municipal finance. She began her role as a senior leadership in billing. So she was a senior manager of billing, where she developed a strong foundation in revenue management and customer billing operations. She later advanced to the role of director of rates and taxes. So that's where a lot of you are concerned with the IDP, where it comes down to how much more you're going to be paying. She also played a key role in overseeing municipal revenue streams and ensuring effective rates administration. Sihle serves now as the group head of the property branch, a position she's held for over 14 years. In this capacity, she's responsible for leading municipal critical functions, including the valuations team, finance, compliance, and data management, and transaction processing operations. She oversees a large and diverse team of approximately 180 professionals. It's a really big team. Driving operational efficiency and ensuring compliance with municipal regulations. She has a background from the private sector before joining the city in both Telkom and Arriva.com, where she built a strong foundation in business operations and customer-focused service delivery. So I'm very honored to have her with us this evening, though she hasn't quite joined back in yet, but hopefully that'll happen in a moment. But Pumza, we might be throwing you under the bus in a moment to help us with some of these questions. And I must tell our participants that having gone through many IDP public meetings, billing meetings that we host with the city, dealings with the presidential working groups and other ways that we kind of bridge the gap of co-governance in the City of Joburg, I rely really heavily on the insights of Sihle and her team and find them very solutions and process orientated. Welcome, Sihle. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry for all of the back and forth. If you can unmute yourself, and then we'll have a bit of a chat as well.
So there we go. Good evening, everybody. Hi. I'm so sorry about the confusion and everything. Finally, I'm able to connect. Good evening, everybody. Once again, my name is Sihle, as introduced. I think Pumza has gone through a lot of the issues that I think you needed to discuss, but I just want to touch on a few issues that are quite important for us and things that could impact a lot of our business and obviously some pensioners and things like that. But I think we need to concentrate a lot on the business sector, I think. So I will get into the business sector and talk about a little bit of what we get and how we can collaborate to make sure that the city moves forward together. So if you look at the properties that we have in the city of Joburg, we've got just over 900,000 properties. And the properties that give us a lot of our revenue is your business, the industrial side, the mining sector, residential as well, because of the ratio that we have. And you find that even the vacant land, we get quite a bit of revenue from those as well. So,
sorry, Sihle, can you just explain what vacant land is and why it actually attaches a rates charge if you haven't got a house on it?
Okay, so the city is looked at as a developing space, and we encourage a lot of our land to be used in one way or the other. So what we do as a city is we look at all land and categorize it in different spaces, different categories. However, for vacant land, any land within the city that has not been developed, whether you've got permissible use for business, permissible use for residential, or any other permissible use, as long as it's vacant, we give you a ratio of 1:4. So you will be paying 4 times what a residential property would be paying. And that's basically to say, let's move and let's develop the land. So it's a way of almost pushing our residents to say, let's develop quickly. And then we liaise a lot with development planning so that they then fast track your building plans and the authorities that you need, authorizations that you need to be able to then develop in those spaces. So vacant land is, you can find vacant land along all the different categories of property that we have. But because we consider it vacant because it's not yet developed, we then club it together. And then in the clubbing, then we put a tariff that is quite, I don't want to say punitive, but it's quite higher than all the other tariffs except for unauthorized use. So it's the highest tariff before you get to the unauthorized use tariff. So we've got a bit of land in that space. We've got about 22,000 pieces of land that is vacant. So when I started in the city, I think we had over 100,000 pieces of land that were vacant. So you can see that the development is happening. It might be gradual, we would want it to be faster as the city, but we also understand that there are different economic pressures that create the slowness in the development of this land. And some of it you might find is also owned by the city itself or government, which is local or a provincial or national government. So those also play a part in the land that is vacant that we have as the city. So that's some information on our land space. Pumza has already touched on the issue of the increase that we intend to, or we propose for the financial year 26-27, which is 3.6 across the board. Now, how do we get to the 3.6? We usually get into discussions with National Treasury. They give us the CPI over a period of time. So every quarter, they give us what their CPI indicatives are. So if you remember, I don't know if somebody looked at the budget for last year, the indicative for this financial year was 4.6 from the information that we had gotten from Treasury. But over the year, then it reduced to about 3.8, then it came to 3.6. And that's what we then propose, because those are the indicatives that we get from National Treasury. And that's how we get to the 3.6 that we are proposing. It is a proposal. The submissions that we get from our clients, we look at them and see what the clients are saying. And we look also at the affordability of the clients, what they say their affordability matrix is in the submissions that they give. So once we get all the submissions, we then look at those and then go to our principals and say, but this is the information that we've got from our clients, and this is what they're saying. How do we look after our clients and make it a bit more conducive for them to continue doing business within the city? And that's how then we then propose whatever tariff that would have come through.
Can I ask, last year there was some rates applied to, as Pumza mentioned now, there were rates applied to private schools and even some government schools where quintile 4 and 5, so your fee-paying government schools, were now levied rates where they hadn't necessarily been before. There weren't as many rebates. This was obviously approved by council, Treasury approved, promulgated that application. There was also a removal in the last few years of rebates for second properties. So you're allowed up to the 300,000 threshold for your first property, but that was removed for second properties. And that created a bit of pushback. We've seen some legal challenges to these and some other things. But this rates policy, that's already accepted. So people can't necessarily push back against those rates in this draft, can they?
Okay. So if you look at the rates policy, we look at it on an annual basis. So every policy needs to go through a process of the IDP where we participate on it and ensure that everybody understands what is in it, what changes we're making. So now if you look at, maybe let me start with the education matter, which is still sub judice because there are appeals upon appeals that are happening in that space. So I don't want to get too much into its detail. However, the policy that was then questioned is the policy that we still go on in the court issues, but because we do a policy every year, we needed to continue. And that's when we said, okay, let's do a phase in while the battle goes on. The legal minds are looking after that, but let's phase in the schools. And that's what we did. We then decided to phase them in until this year, the next financial year, which is 26-27. That's when they're going to go 100% on the business tariff for the privately owned schools, and for PSP for the schools that are owned by government. While doing that as well, we then said, okay, are there any schools that have got different challenges in that there are no fee-paying schools, meaning that they're in disadvantaged areas and no. So if you look at the policy of the City of Joburg, we try to accommodate the less disadvantaged as much as we can. And in doing that, we then looked at the quintiles, because I think there are 5 quintiles, if I'm not mistaken. We then said, okay, how do we then put a proposal out there? And some of these issues, with all due respect, if the clientele had come in year 1 to say to us, look at the quintiles, let's look at that as a basis on which to start, I think we would have engaged at that point and found a solution at that point. But because all of us were concentrating on this battle that is in court, I think we did ourselves a disservice in that we were not looking outside to see what else can we do other than this thing that we are debating in the courts with. And so now that we've moved on and we've said, okay, let's go 100% on all phase-ins that we've done. Now let's look at how to assist further these that come from the disadvantaged schools that cannot even pay anything. The children can't pay school fees. Then we thought we looked at the education issues, and then we found that we could actually look at quintiles and propose them. So all these issues are proposals currently. We haven't sealed them yet, and we are discussing them to say, is this a fair way of looking at it? Is there something better that we can do? And that's where we are with the education issue. The other issue, Julia, you talked about was please just give me a heads up on that one.
The rebate up to 300,000 that's no longer accepted for second properties.
Yes, on that one. The city has got a lot of people who own more than one property. And what we discovered when we then went to say all properties will have a 300,000 threshold, we then discovered that a lot of people who owned multi-story buildings in the city were all of a sudden sectionalizing everything, and remember, when we do budgeting, we look at what is the potential of us making money out of the city, and fairly so. And looking at that, we discovered that a lot of buildings that were unsectionalized were now being sectionalized, and all the values were going below the threshold, meaning that the base on which the city could then make money was being depleted. Rightfully or wrongfully so, that is a debate for another day. However, we then said, why is there a rush for everybody who is now wanting to sectionalize their units. Then we discovered that most of the units that are sectionalizing now are going to go below the threshold, meaning that the city then loses rates and taxes on those properties. We then went and said, how do we then stop this sectionalizing to avoid paying rates? And we looked at what the possibilities were, and we discovered that a lot of them were doing it because there is a potential of not paying rates. Is that right or wrong? That's a debate for another day. However, we needed to then protect the base of the city from a revenue point of view. And we said, okay, let's give this rebate, because it's a rebate, it's not a right. It's a rebate that the city then gives to property owners to say, yes, we understand that this is the situation that you have. Taxes are quite high. But if you own one property and you're living in it, then we will give you the rebate. But if you cannot, if I own 300 properties as Sihlemuri, I'm not living in all of them. Let's look at it that way. I'm only going to live in one. The others, I will rent them out, which means I'm making an income. So if I'm making an income from that, and the one that I'm living in, that's where the fairness and equitability comes in, only on the one that I'm living in. And the other argument that we received from other sources were, I, as a person, want that rebate so that I'm able to live better. But if I've got more than one property, that means I'm making income on the other property. Even the pensioners, we also ask them that to say, if you have more than one property, we'll only give you the pensioners rebate on one property. On the other properties, we don't give you the rebate, because that is seen to be fair and equitable across the board.
The question, though, is if it's under the 300,000 Rand threshold in value, would those not be considered affordable housing rentals? And then that cost is being passed on to a tenant that would ultimately make it unaffordable. What are we doing for, promoting affordable housing and access to affordable housing for residents of the city?
Okay, so if you look at the policy of the City of Joburg and you look at there is a component where we talk about affordable housing and landlords and all that. So if you are in that space, and that is, I know there's a SHRA model that we use as well in there, but if you are a landlord who is got a stock and you want to be able to then rent it out for one reason or the other, you are able to use that part of the policy. I don't have it off the top of my head, but there is a policy consideration that we have in the policy where you can then assist with affordable accommodation for people. But obviously, there are some requirements that you need to meet. So the city, I think, has tried to make sure that the policy is all inclusive and all accommodating, so that we then assist those that are not able to fend for themselves from an accommodation point of view. But in the mix of doing all that, the city needs to still remember that they need to make money. And the money that I make, a lot of people would say, but you make money, but you're not filling the potholes. My job as a tax collector is to make the money, and I hand it over to other departments for them to use it to make sure that the other facilities are working within the city. So even on I think it's the life rights, if I remember well, where they said we are in life rights environments for retired people, and you're not giving us the benefit. We then looked and said, okay, if we give you the benefit, if we give the owner the benefit, what guarantee does the city have that that benefit passes over to the people who actually need it? Now, in a city as big as ours, there is a lot of people who are doing good things, and there are a lot of people who would want to use the facility for themselves and not for the people that it's intended to. So the city needs to make sure that when we do these things and the rebates that we give for pensioners and everything, it reaches the right client. And I think that's the challenge that we have. If we can work with yourselves and get to a point where we look at the policy in its totality and say, for this benefit that we want from a rental point of view, to lower the rentals that people would pay, this is how the city can get comfort that this benefit will go down to the bottom. I think the city is willing to discuss those issues. So And those issues take long to discuss. We can't just sit now when we do the IDP. The IDP process started a long time ago, but we're coming towards the end. So if we really want to have a discussion where we say, let's unpack this and let's look at how best we can serve the disadvantaged in our communities by making sure that they pay less rental, and it's a discussion that would need to do maybe over a 4-5 months period. But both parties, the city and yourselves, would need to sit down and say, how do we unpack this? How do we give the city the comfort that they want? And how do we as business people also get the comfort that the city is fair in its processes? So it's a two-way street, and we need to actually work together to get this done correctly and ensure that the benefit reaches the right people.
How do residents find out if they qualify for these rebates? How do they apply for them, and how long do they last? So I believe you do actually have to reapply every GVR period, for example.
Yes. So most of our rebates, we've tried to align them to the valuation roll. So you will remember when we had GV 2018, we intended to have a new GV come out in 2022, but because of COVID and all those challenges, we then extended the GV with the approval of the MEC COCTA. With that extension, we then extended the benefits, the rebates and everything to align to the new GV. So even this time, as we prepare for GV 2027, we are going to drop all the rebates that we've been giving, unfortunately, on the 30th of June 2027. On the 1st of July 2027, new rebates will come through. So we are in the process of creating a comms strategy, which will then assist us to get to our clients to tell them that this is the process. Now, because of the period where we do the public participation, where we get the budgets approved, the time between budget approval and loading of tariffs and loading of rebates is very small. So what we're looking at is to then get our clients to apply. Then we put them in abeyance saying, you've applied, yes, we've looked at everything. The only thing that we need to validate now is your income, which you've given us already, and the thresholds that the city will agree to. So if we can have those applications beforehand, the minute that the city says this is the threshold and this is the rebate income levels, then we can push those rebates through, but would have had them in advance. The challenge that we had in the last GV intake was that by the time the clients were applying, it was already, the GV was already in place, the financial year had started. So we took almost 3, 4, 5 months for clients to start reaping the benefits. So we are trying to change our processes to make sure that we accommodate the clients and ensure that they get the benefit from the get-go.
So we've received some questions from our residents associations and residents who are unable to join us this evening. Please feel free to skip ones that might not necessarily be in your department, but I'll try and engage with my experience with the city, and there's some tough ones.
Okay. So, let's see how we do that.
So the one, and I know we've spoken about this kind of offline, but you know, it's not your department, but if you can maybe shed some light on it, it's very straightforward. Why is sanitation charged on property size, not on usage or consumption?
That's a Joburg water issue. And I know that there's some legal challenges that we've got on that one. And if you remember in the past, we used to look at the water consumption and then the sewer would be linked to that. Then it changed to the size of the urban. I feel they wanted to look at something that is consistent, which is the land size. So I think we are in debate on it, and there is a lot of debates going on, especially from residential properties and a lot of businesses that are saying, but it doesn't make sense. And I remember there's one who even gave me an example. I think it was a councillor who said, I might have an agricultural holding that is 20,000 square meters, but I've only got one flushing toilet and one sink and one bathtub. So how do you validate the fact that you are charging me so much sewer? So it's a discussion that's going on, and I think we'll reach finality very soon.
Excellent news. There's also one that says, the city spends a lot of money on systems. Why is this cost so high, and can we save money in the budget here? What IT products does your office use, and how effectively are they integrated to the rest of the city?
Okay, so if you look at and I will concentrate on mine, and then we'll take it a step further. So if you look at the City of Joburg from my side, I use 3 systems. I use a system called Land Information Systems, which is your LIS, that stores a lot of the land information, which is your TAS. I'll use acronyms, but I'll try and unpack them, which is your TAS, your BAS, your deeds information. So deeds information comes from deeds, and it interfaces into your LIS system. Your TAS and your BAS are the systems that the land planners, the development planning team uses to put in information on what approvals you get for different things for them to load onto the system. Then the LIS system then takes that information and pushes it through to the valuers. The valuers use a system called Ovio. In the past, we used to have an external system that we paid licenses for, and then we decided as a city that because this is the core business of the city, this is something that we'll forever need to be able to then value properties. Let's look for a system, buy it, have it owned fully by the City of Joburg, have the codes and everything. I'm not an IT person, so don't judge me on that one. So whatever it is that the valuers use now, we own that system 100%, source code and everything. So we own it. So I think with that ownership, it gives us, it becomes cheaper for us to maintain the system. It becomes cheaper for us to configure the system the way we want to configure it as the MPRA changes, as valuation methodologies change. So that's one component that we've done. And it was done after I think we had spent quite a bit of money on an external system that was being maintained by external people. So I think we're moving in the right direction as the city in bringing things home and owning things in our environment from a technological point of view, so that we are then able to continuously use this thing without necessarily having challenges of being told that the system is now being developed and it needs upgrades and you need to pay for the upgrade. So we're upgrading the system ourselves. So that's where we are coming from. It's lessons of things that we've done in the past that have made us look and say there's a better way of doing this. So the city is moving in that kind of direction, and hopefully in the next near future we should be able to say the city has got things or systems that we can maintain, we can look after, and we own to a certain extent.
Now, this is a testy one, and I understand as a official in the city, you'll have to be diplomatic. Is this a balanced and funded budget? There are concerns raised by JoburgCAN, ourselves, and the minister's letter to the mayor about collection rates being overestimated. So what is the rates department collection rate? We hear a lot about, falling collection rates within power and water. And is the city overestimating what it can make, only leading to adjustments and shortfalls later?
Okay. I think as residents of the City of Joburg and as employees of the City of Joburg on our side, we need to pay for services that we use. It is not right that you use a service and you don't want to pay for one reason or the other. The city has created processes for those who are genuinely not able to pay the city to come through and get ESP loaded, to get discounts granted for them to then pay the balance. The debtors book is quite high, and it's public knowledge. However, it is the willingness of the people who use the services to pay. we can have a funded budget. We can make collections of 120% if our clients pay. So everybody would then say to us, I'm not working, I'm not this and this. Understandable. There is ESP. Why don't you come and register? Then the city is able to then look after you with the national government understanding that you're not working. But you find that at a certain level, and I want to say this with the utmost respect, even people who've got good jobs, who are working, who can afford to pay, they don't want to pay. And when you look at, like I would take myself, I work for the City of Joburg. Why wouldn't I not want to pay when I know the city pays me a good salary? It might be not the best that I want, but it's a salary that I can live on. So why am I not paying my services? I would rather go and pay Woolworths, Edgar's and things like that and not pay something that is very important for me to live on. It's very difficult to live without electricity, without water, but I want to pay Woolies. And I don't mean Woolies in a bad way or anything like that, but I'm saying our want to pay for certain things and not others, we need to justify and say, but these are benefits that I get that I need. You need water to live. You need electricity for warmth in winter, but you don't want to pay for the services. And the city has to pay Rand Water, has to pay Eskom for the electricity. So it's also, for me, I feel it's a two-way street. The city needs to maybe up their game in the credit control process, but also our clients need to pay. You've enjoyed the benefit, pay for it. It's the right thing to do. So from an issue of funded budget, the city always sits with National Treasury, and Treasury looks at what we've put in the budget, what our borrowings are, what our collections are, what grants we get from the government. When they look at that, they then advise the city, funded or not funded. So if National Treasury tells you we are funded, we are funded. If they tell you we are not funded, then would need to adjust the budget at that point. But National Treasury really guards what we do. They look at it. We have very serious engagements with them where they'll be telling us if they're not happy with something that we're doing, they address it and we try and fix it. So the issue of for now, I know that our budget is funded. If it gets unfunded, obviously National Treasury will take it. And the discussions that the mayor is having with National Treasury for us and the minister is for me a healthy thing to do, because if the minister is concerned about certain things in the city, he's got every right to come to us as officials to say, Mr. Mayor, your officials are not doing what I expect them to do as a minister, so can you please get them to do the right thing? So those engagements are going on, and I know that the city manager, the group CFO, the mayor, the deputy mayor, and the minister are really engaged in these talks, and they're having meetings all the time to try and find solutions.
That's excellent news. Thank you. Now, let's be honest. In my introduction, I said that less than 1% of people actually participate in the IDP process. They don't really comment on it. And that lack of public participation in the IDP goes beyond just the barriers of understanding it, which are quite high. But it also comes down to a bit of a lack in faith in the city. People, I'm sure, are asking, why should I engage? The city will just do what this says and ignore public participation. It's a tick box exercise, is something we hear quite often. Why should people get involved? Why is this important?
For me, I think I'm an official and I need to do what the citizens want me to do. And the only way I can engage with you is if you engage with me. So if I put out documents out there and say, these are the documents and this is the thought process that I've gone through to prepare for yourselves, can you please look at them? And you don't. It's either I adopt what I say, it might be wrong. Like I've given you the example of the quintiles 1, 2, 3, that we concentrated on the court matters and forgot that there's a bigger picture out there that we could have done much better for earlier. So the engagements are very important because it's the people's rates policy. It's not my rates policy. It's your rates policy. The minute the councillors sit in council and say approved, they're approving it on your behalf. So now if you don't engage us, the officials, and just a step back, if you look at the submissions that I make to council, and I'll talk to rates and taxes specifically, all the questions that you've sent to the rates comments box, all the questions that would have received in the public participation processes that we've had, we then go and say, this is what was raised by the client. This is a response from an official point of view of what we can and cannot do. So for every issue that is raised for rates and taxes, we ensure that Pumza is one of the researchers in the department. They then go and prepare a full document that gives you what was raised as a concern and what the city's response is. I remember there was one concern that was raised, I can't remember if it was GV 2018 or 2013, about pensioners, because we're saying if your value of your property is 1.5, then you will get the rebate. But if it's 1.51 million, you don't get the benefit. A rand more, you don't get the benefit. The clients came and said, Sihle, this doesn't make sense. And if you really want to give us the benefit, why aren't you making it possible for us to get the benefit up to 1.5? Then we can pay the little extra that you want. And we did that as the city. So we do listen, and when you come to us, come with possible solutions as well, because we can't think about everything on our own. You know better because you live the experience. So when you live the experience, you are able to then engage with us. And one thing that we've said in our property team is that we should listen to our clients. They might be saying things that we think are impossible to do, but if we listen, there is a possibility of ensuring that whatever they say to us in one shape or in one way or another, we are able to incorporate, even if it's not 100%, let's try to meet them halfway. And that's the importance of the public participation for us. And yes, the numbers are not so good. And I don't know how the other municipalities are doing, but in our space, I'm talking, we've got 900,000 properties. If we can't even do 50% of that, then we're very far from getting to our clients. And we need to find different ways of doing it. And it's one of the issues that when we engage with yourselves, you should be able to tell us that, Sihle, if you use this kind of platform and this kind of platform, you might get more people to listen to you. And our team is very versatile. We are able to, whatever you tell us to do, we'll try and get into those spaces to make sure that we reach as many of our clients as we can.
Thank you so much, Sihle. Because of the issues at the beginning, we've gone a little bit over time, but I hope to be able to engage you again next year when you launch your general valuation roll. And I know
you can even engage us before then.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get people to engage before the valuation roll expires is a big task, and we really hope to get that done next year.
Yes. So with the valuation roll, if I can just give you a bit of information on it, we are busy collecting data now. So if any client wants to give us data, you can. I'm happy if the clients even come to my office and give me the data, I'll take it, you know. But we will be introducing platforms where you can then load your information and give us the information that we want. So I would plead that we don't engage closer to the valuation roll. Let's start engaging now on the valuation roll, because it is almost a living document, because we are building up to it. So if you can assist us in the build up, and I know there's a lot of buildings that are dilapidated. We might have the wrong values from a value point of view. But if you give me the data that the valuers need to go and value the properties and move away from mass in certain instances to go and look at what is happening on the ground, because when you do mass, you look at the top and then you assume certain things when you look at your cells and information that is available. But if you want us to concentrate on certain nodes within the city where you are saying, but here you are undervaluing and it's because you don't have the right data, you're more than welcome to come to me, to the valuer. I'll be sharing the municipal valuer's details with you soon. I'll be sharing all the deputy directors in the valuation space, their details, so that the clients can come to us and give us what we need so that we can do a better job when we prepare the next valuation roll.
Thank you so much again. I'd like to thank our guests this evening and Pumza for stepping in at the beginning, for talking to us and joining us and being so helpful, and to our viewers for engaging on the topic and sending information in advance. This webinar will be available on our website in the coming days. We've also dropped in the chat the comment link for residents to please engage. The city has made it much easier in the last 2 years for residents to engage. There's a really simple drop-down form where you can actually send it directly to each department. So Sihle at the Rates Department will get your comments directly thanks to the drop-down menus. And it's really advanced how people engage. So we highly recommend that people do comment. Tariff, budget, rates, and IDP comment closes at 5 o'clock on the 18th of May. So please have a look at that link. If you live in the city of Joburg, please visit our website, JoburgCAN.org.za, to get updates on the work we're doing in Johannesburg's biggest city, in South Africa's biggest city, Johannesburg. The IDP is technically a 5-year plan linked to the local government term. So this year of the 5-year cycle ahead of the local government elections is the last of that 5 years. So JoburgCAN is releasing a report next week on how the city has performed over that larger promise, and what we should be looking out for and therefore ask for in the next 5-year cycle, and particularly put to representatives who are lobbying for your votes and running for office this local government election. See what's been promised, see what hasn't been delivered, or what has kind of been added over the years. That report will come out in the next week. Also next week, Wednesday, Executive Mayor Dado Marrero will deliver the State of the City address. You can catch it on the City of Joburg's YouTube channel. It's also a live link on their Facebook pages. And you can find the written speech on their website, joburg.org.za. This is also where you'll find all the tariff, IDP, budget, and rates policy information under the tab Key Documents. On our website, you can also catch up on last year's engagement with councillors on the IDP or 2024's municipal budget how-to session with municipal finance expert Marilise Fourie. And what all of this means is under our Webinar Hub tab. Until next time, from me, Julia Fish, and the whole JoburgCAN team, thank you and good night.